The movie starts with a 70-mile-wide asteroid called Matilda heading toward Earth. The world's governments send a spaceship to destroy it, but the mission fails when the spaceship explodes as it enters the asteroid field, dooming humanity. In 3 weeks, the asteroid will hit Earth and end all life. Dodge and Linda, a married couple, hear the news while driving in their car. Dodge doesn't seem to care much and simply notes that they missed their exit. Frustrated by his indifference, Linda decides to leave him for good. Meanwhile, people around the world start making end-of-the-world plans, trying to complete their bucket lists. Signs pop up offering services like naughty meetings, companionship for the final days, and mercenaries for hire to kill those who want to avoid facing the end. While the world is changing, Dodge continues his dull, uneventful life. With 21 days left, he still goes to the gym, though it's mostly empty now. On TV, he sees news about service outages, and the announcer warns that water and power will soon be cut off. The next day, Dodge drives to work through terrible traffic as everyone tries to leave the city. At the office, only a few workers show up. He answers calls from clients asking about insurance for global catastrophes and sits through meetings offering promotions to anyone who still shows up, though no one in his group accepts. When Dodge returns home, his mailbox is empty as usual. He sees his neighbor Penny running out of her apartment after breaking up with her boyfriend Owen, who shouts at her from behind. Inside his apartment, Dodge finds Elsa, his weekly cleaner. He tries to tell her she doesn't need to come anymore because of the end of the world, but Elsa gets upset, thinking he's firing her. Dodge quickly apologizes, saying she'll still come next week. Elsa leaves, promising to return as usual. That evening, Dodge drinks cough syrup mixed with vodka and watches TV. He learns that the final flight has departed and airlines are no longer operational. Although private planes can still fly, experts advise against it due to high risks. Before going to bed, Dodge encounters a spider in his bathroom. He initially prepares to kill it but decides to let it live. That night, the spider crawls across his face. The next morning, Dodge wakes up with multiple spider bites. At work, Dodge is shaken when the body of a coworker who has just died by suicide lands on his car. A week passes, leaving only 14 days. Dodge attends an end-of-the-world party hosted by his friend Diane. During the party, Diane's teenage son insults his parents before storming off, and they respond in kind, no longer caring. Her husband opens an exclusive pack of cigarettes and promises to share one with Dodge. Diane comments that she's not surprised Linda left Dodge, as she was never happy. This revelation shocks Dodge, who had been oblivious. Diane insists on setting Dodge up with someone so he won't die alone. When Dodge refuses, her husband jokes that no one will die alone since the whole world is ending together. Despite Dodge's protests, Diane introduces him to Karen, who is wearing all her fanciest clothes. Karen tries to make conversation, but Dodge struggles to respond, making the interaction awkward. During dinner, the guests share their plans for their last days, visiting family or checking items off their bucket lists. Karen flirts with Dodge, saying she wants to spend her final days with someone special. After dinner, the party becomes chaotic, with even children being allowed to drink. Karen continues to flirt with Dodge while dancing, but he tries to ignore her. A friend tells Dodge that women now have no standards, giving every man a chance, no matter how unattractive. He brags about his own recent exploits and suggests teaming up to pursue Karen, but Dodge declines. The party escalates with fireworks and illegal substances, prompting Dodge to hide in the bathroom. Diane finds him there and shocks him by attempting to kiss him. Dodge immediately rejects her, reminding her she's married, but Diane dismisses his concerns, saying no one cares anymore. Tired, Dodge leaves the party early and reflects on his old life. Looking at a picture of his high school sweetheart, Olivia, he begins playing the harmonica but stops when he hears a woman crying on the fire escape. Dodge checks and finds Penny in distress. She tearfully hugs him, explaining she missed the last flight to the UK and now won't be able to reunite with her family before the end. Feeling sympathetic, Dodge invites her inside and shares his cough syrup mixed with vodka. In return, Penny offers Dodge some pot, which he declines. She explains that smoking is the only thing that helps her sleep and wake up because she suffers from hypersomnia, a condition that makes her sleep through everything, even the apocalypse. The duo watches TV together and eventually falls asleep on the couch. The next day, Penny continues to sleep deeply despite the loud TV and Elsa vacuuming nearby. Dodge pinches her nose to wake her, but it has no effect, so he plays the harmonica instead. This finally rouses her, and she announces she's ready to return to her apartment. Downstairs, Penny brings Dodge a pile of mail, explaining that the mailman always delivered his letters to her mailbox by mistake. This has been happening for years, and she saved them all, but she never saw him around to hand them over. The only person she recognized was Linda, who Penny assumed was Dodge's roommate since she often saw her happily with a boyfriend. Dodge is shocked to realize Linda had been cheating on him. Back in his apartment, Dodge furiously destroys all of Linda's belongings, feeling like a complete fool. He then buys a bottle of blue liquid and heads to the park, where he scares off a pair of teenagers kissing before drinking himself into unconsciousness. His plan to self-delete fails, and he wakes up perfectly healthy the next morning to find an abandoned dog tied to him with a note that simply says, "Sorry." With only 12 days left, Dodge takes the dog and heads home. As he walks through the city, he notices that violence has erupted everywhere. Fights, fires, and looting are now common. Back at his apartment, Dodge feeds the dog and watches the news, which reports escalating riots. While sorting through his old mail, he discovers a letter from Olivia, dated months ago. In it, Olivia says she never stopped thinking about him and wanted to reconnect. But she also warns him not to look for her, as it's too late. Her final line reveals he was the love of her life. Suddenly, a brick smashes through his window, and alarms blare as the riots reach his building. Violent intruders are already in the hallway, so Dodge grabs the dog, the harmonica, and Olivia's letter before escaping through the fire escape. Dodge goes to Penny's apartment, where he encounters Owen, who assumes Penny is cheating on him with Dodge. Owen punches the wall in anger, breaking his hand. Ignoring Owen, Dodge wakes Penny, only for Owen to start arguing with her again. When Dodge finally mentions the riots, Penny insists on grabbing as many records from her collection as possible. The trio runs out of the building, and Penny offers to drive, but she can't remember where she parked her car. As they search, someone opens fire, and Owen uses Penny as a shield to protect himself. When they finally find her car, Penny struggles to parallel park, and Owen steps out to guide her, all while hurling insults revealing why Penny left him. Tired of their bickering, Dodge offers Penny a deal. The next day, they run out of gas because Penny forgot to fill the tank. As they walk down the road, Penny tries to stay optimistic, but Dodge snaps, accusing her of ruining his life by delaying Olivia's letter. Feeling guilty, Penny promises to reunite him with Olivia. She starts hitchhiking, and a man named Glenn offers them a ride. During the ride, Glenn shares his life story, starting with his father's childhood. Dodge finds it unbearable, especially when Glenn reveals that a doctor told him he had only 6 weeks to live just before the apocalypse was announced. Glenn, who lost his true love years ago, considered self-deleting but refrained, hoping to get into heaven. Glenn's behavior makes Dodge suspicious, especially when he notices digging equipment in the back of the truck. When Glenn stops to relieve himself, he invites Dodge to join him. Dodge declines and warns Penny they might be traveling with a psycho, but Penny dismisses his concerns and takes the dog for a walk. Glenn returns and accuses Dodge of being a killer, interpreting his blank face as evidence. Dodge denies this, and Glenn apologizes, laughing as he explains he hired a mercenary to kill him. Just then, the mercenary arrives and shoots Glenn, leaving Dodge and Penny to bury the body using Glenn's equipment before driving off in his truck. Later, they stop at a roadside diner called Frenzy's for a break. The waiter greets them with hugs, confessing that the staff has been experimenting with wild recipes due to heavy smoking. Penny and Dodge stick to classic dishes, order food for the dog, and even join a conga line. While eating, they share stories from their pasts, but the meal is interrupted when Penny informs the staff it's Dodge's birthday. The waiters bring him a cake and sing for him, and a waitress kisses them both. The party becomes rowdy, so the pair leaves with the dog. Back in the truck, a moment of tension arises, and they end up becoming intimate. Later, Dodge feels guilty about their age difference, but Penny reassures him it was her choice as an adult. Their moment is interrupted by sirens. A cop is pulling them over. Penny wants to keep driving, arguing that laws don't matter anymore, but Dodge insists on stopping. Since she's smoking, Dodge takes her cigarette and accidentally inhales it. The cop lists their violations, but Penny points out how pointless it is. The cop doesn't care and arrests them anyway. In jail, they meet a man detained for disturbing the peace with a "the end is here" sign. Penny breaks down, feeling like she's failed Dodge, but he comforts her, admitting she didn't ruin his life. He did that to himself long ago. He plays the harmonica until they both fall asleep. The next morning, a new cop arrives and releases everyone. Unfortunately, Glenn's truck has been impounded, but the officer offers them a ride. Penny remembers an ex-spec who lives nearby, so they visit him. Speck, a former soldier with a bomb shelter full of military buddies, is still in love with Penny. He lends her a satellite phone, allowing her to finally call her family. She cries as she hears their voices and even meets her baby niece over the phone. While she's busy, Speck tells Dodge that only Penny is welcome in the shelter. Later, Penny asks Speck for a car, refusing to stay with him. Speck agrees to lend the car but tells Penny to return it after she's fulfilled her promise to Dodge. The duo continues to bond during their trip and eventually arrives at Olivia's childhood home, but nobody answers the door. Penny breaks the window to open the door, and they find lots of food in the fridge, so they agree to spend the night there. Dodge finds a record player, and Penny listens to her old records while she cooks. When Dodge wakes up from a nap, he shares dinner with Penny and the dog. Penny opens up more about her family, including the love for records she inherited from her dad. Then, Penny checks a drawer and finds a letter from Olivia to her parents, which includes a return address. Dodge gets excited, and they agree to go there the next day. That night, Dodge discovers that Olivia wrote his name on her childhood bed, and Penny smiles at old pictures of Dodge from an old yearbook. The next morning, they go to the address on the envelope. Dodge tells Penny to wait in the car while he goes to the house. He returns only a few seconds later and drives away. Penny is confused, and Dodge explains that he didn't knock. He simply left a letter. An argument happens when Penny asks what has changed, which makes Dodge almost crash into a group of people. They leave the car and follow the crowd to a local beach, where people are getting baptized. Dodge and Penny find it sweet, kiss each other, and join the crowd. They spend the day on a nice picnic, making friends with everyone, and the dog plays with the locals. Dodge tries to teach Penny how to play the harmonica, and she learns it was a gift from his dad. They continue their journey and arrive at a house in the countryside. The man with the plane is Frank, who turns out to be Dodge's dad. Penny gives them space as Frank tries to apologize to Dodge. Dodge says it doesn't matter anymore because the end is coming, but Frank keeps trying to make things right. They have a nice dinner together and even play the harmonica after. When Penny falls asleep, Dodge carries her to the plane and tells her she's the love of his life before Frank flies off to the UK. Dodge then returns home with the dog and finds a note from Karen and Elsa, who are cleaning his apartment. Dodge gets upset and tells Elsa to spend the last days with her family. Elsa is hurt because she sees Dodge as a friend, and Dodge regrets his words. He tells her to come back next week, though he knows there won't be a next week. Later, Dodge watches the final TV broadcast, where the news anchor says the calculations were wrong, and the asteroid will arrive in 16 hours. The anchor gives a sad goodbye speech and the signal cuts off. Feeling sad, Dodge goes to Penny's apartment, listens to her records, and remembers what she taught him. He lies down on the floor waiting for the end, listening to the music until the power goes out. Then the dog barks and Dodge is surprised to see that Penny came back. She says she woke up during the flight and made Frank take her back. They hug, lie down on the bed, and confess their feelings for each other. To keep Penny awake and distracted from the explosions outside, Dodge keeps talking to her and asking about her old life. The couple looks into each other's eyes as the asteroid hits Earth, ending everything. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and see you next time.